Aton,
Oh, sorry.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press, Steinbrink,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Welsh. Could we have a motion to excuse Councilmember Allworthy?
So moved.
Aton,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press, Steinbrink,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Welsh.
Yes.
Thank you. The first thing on the agenda are minutes from the special council meeting of February 14th, 2023.
Move to approve.
Second.
Aton,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press, Steinbrink,
Abstain.
Turner,
Yes.
Welsh.
Yes.
Thank you. Next is minutes from the regular council meeting of February 14th, 2023.
Move to approve.
Second.
Aton,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press, Steinbrink.
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Welsh.
Yes.
Thank you. Next is minutes from the special council meeting of February 17th, 2023.
Move to approve.
Aton,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press, Steinbrink.
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Welsh.
Yes.
Thank you. Next is pay ordinance 1271 for $730,710.90.
Move to approve.
Second.
This is big because it has the road overrun in it.
I'm sorry, David,
This is-
what?
This is a big number because it has the road overrun from last year included in it. The Roniak, $250,000.
Right.
Right.
Aton,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press,
Yes.
Steinbrink.
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Welsh.
Yes.
Okay, next is financial statement. The treasurer's report was included in your package and is online, I believe. Any questions?
Oh, I do have one question, Karen. I noticed today that the new five-year financial projection is on the website. We haven't actually reviewed it at council yet, so it seems to me it would be appropriate to have Steve present it next time he's here and we can comment on it.
Well, we can have it presented the next time in April.
Yeah,
Can you make a
exactly.
note of that, please?
I think it's important. Can I make a comment? We've got a new projection on the website. We should take the old one off. It's still there. And that's the one with the gaping deficits for the
I
next
know.
5
Once
years.
they're public record, it's kind of a public record.
Well,
So
don't you-
normally you don't remove it. Am I correct? Okay,
I think that
we'll
would be,
take it off
that would be good to do.
as long as the new one's on there.
It is.
Okay. Next is mayor's report. I want to read a letter that we got after last month's council meeting. And this was to our police chief, and it's Dear Chief Minicello, I'm contacting you with a long overdue letter to commend two of your officers on the evening of May 15th, 2022. After our 911 call for an ambulance, Patrolman Dylan Hooker and Patrolman Mitchell Cole were the first to arrive at our home. I had a freak accident with my 6-month-old, 50-pound golden retriever puppy, Dutch. Dutch was getting his zoomies out before bed and ran by me with his leash still attached on his way up the stairs to the bedroom. As he was passing by my right side, I somehow stepped on the leash. My foot went backward, caused me to fall on my right knee replacement with my foot under my backside, landing on my back. I heard a popping sound and was sure I messed up my knee replacement, but I managed to crawl my way upstairs backwards, one step at a time, and got to my room. It was only after doing this that I realized I probably messed something up badly. We called for an ambulance. Patrolman Hooker and Cole arrived shortly after our 911 call. Upon coming upstairs where I was, they pointed out that it might not be possible to get a gurney back down the stairs due to the layout. They asked me if I could possibly go downstairs by walking or them carrying me. The problem was the slightest touch caused my right leg mind-numbing pain. Both patrolmen were great and thorough, and they let me put an arm over each shoulder to help me down the steps one at a time. We got to the garage. They helped me get down to 3 remaining steps, found me a desk chair and was able, that was about to go in the dumpster. I asked if we could sit and they could wheel me to my wife's car. I did, and then they helped lift me into the car. Their calm but quick thinking enabled us to get to the hospital in short order, where I found out I had broken my right femur, requiring surgery and implantation of an 8-inch rod. There are too many negative comments about our police in today's society, and we wanted to thank Patrolman Hooker and Cole, as well as commend them both. Sincerely, John Schwartz.
Very nice.
Next, the council meetings are normally the second Tuesday of the month. Is there any reason we couldn't go to the third, which we'd have to vote on and whatnot, the third Tuesday of the month? Because to get some months, we miss like the first week. So Chip and I, in discussing the agenda and whatnot, thought maybe if we moved the council meeting to the third week, we wouldn't have as much of a problem. So the third Tuesday of the week, if we could do that, that also frees up where we could have our law director for the full meeting and not just go out. So I'm asking for input. We wouldn't do it at this meeting. We'd do it next month at the, still the second Tuesday, but that would be the thinking.
You mean vote on it next month?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thoughts, or you can tell me after the meeting.
I have
Fine
no
by
problem.
me.
I have no problem.
problem with that.
Fine with me.
I don't have a problem with that.
Ed?
If everybody else wants to do it, I'll do it.
Okay. And Chip's not here too, but we thought it would be, make it easier getting the agenda out early, and Janet has more days in the month beforehand. It just kind of works out better.
Mhm.
So it's just a thought.
Okay.
You can think about it, Lori. You don't
Yeah, I
have
was
to
just
answer
looking
right
at
now.
calendar. I just planned some travel around the second, but it's looking.
Well, we wouldn't do it right away. So
Right.
next month we'd still be the second Tuesday, and it wouldn't really start till May.
May. Okay,
Well,
That,
well, we'll work it out. All right, you can let me know, Lori. Next is clerk's report.
did anybody know on our website, if you are looking at the village council meeting, that there is a transcript of the whole meeting off to the left?
No, I never didn't notice it.
It's not perfect, but it's there. As soon as the video is put up, it's there.
Nice.
And nobody has known this except my son-in-law.
Good to know.
So I thought I'd share that.
Well, okay, well, thank you.
So what you've just said will be on the next video.
What worse, yes, it will be. And
Very
what you
good.
said will be there too. We just won't know who said it. You got
That's
to figure,
right.
fill in the blank.
We'll know, we'll know.
Okay,
Got to be able to tell by the voices.
that's it.
Okay. Committee reports. The first one listed is broadband. Lori?
yeah, thanks, Karen. Ann's traveling, Ann Whitney, so she asked me to give the report for the broadband committee. And there's, the report is in your packet, but I just wanted to walk through it with all of you for a second here. So after meeting with and talking about this potential project with infrastructure providers, it was very clear to the committee that we needed expertise in the form of a consultant to support the project. And that's, in general, that's what a lot of other municipalities have done. So we set about researching potential consultants, and we narrowed it down to a field of 4 companies. We heard presentations from all those companies, either via Zoom or at least one in person. We found that the consultants differed in their approach, including their scope and cost. So in order to really evaluate, we developed a set of criteria that we went through with each consultant. The criteria were experience, timing and availability, their scope and process, cost estimate, and pluses and minuses. We also looked at location so that they could meet with us if we needed to in person on a cost-effective basis, as well as a potential for conflict, and that was evaluated in the pluses and minuses category. So based on our review and analysis, we recommended using Tom Reed of Reed Consulting Group. He's located in Athens, Ohio. RCG has extensive experience and is capable of providing services for the entire scope of the project, which wasn't true of all but one other of the consultants. So RCGs agreed to break down their services into 2 phases. The committee thought it was appropriate to do a baseline analysis first. The baseline would cover locations and others, household, businesses, schools, current service levels, and speed. Would include a financial analysis, potential ISPs, all to be contained in a report. Phase 2, if Gates Mills decides to move forward after seeing the report, would cover an RFP and contract negotiations. The statement of work for all services, phases 1 and 2, we found is a not to exceed $40,000 with RCG. The baseline analysis is estimated to be $15,000. Our recommendation is that we would not proceed with phase 2 without council's approval after reviewing the phase 1 report. So if you all have questions on this report, on our work or our analysis, could you please direct those to the committee? We would like to take you to take the opportunity to do that in the next few weeks so that we can move forward with a resolution, hopefully at the next council meeting, in order to keep the project moving.
Do you want to take questions now or later?
If it's general, Michael, that would be fine. If we're really getting into the details, we can do that.
I have 2 general questions.
Sure.
One is, I wondered if we had considered using the same consultant Hunting Valley is using, because they're basically at the same stage that we are right now, and there may be some synergy or some economies of scale. And I know this isn't the guy that Hunting Valley is using.
Yeah, good point. And we did consider that consultant as part of our analysis.
So they were one of the finalists?
They were.
Okay. And secondly, I wondered if the guy you selected, if we decide to do something where the village invests in some of this infrastructure, like the loop itself, and owns it, does this consultant have the ability to project manage that sort of thing if we were to go that far into the broadband and actually own it or operate it ourselves?
Yes, they would. They have the ability to help us evaluate that scenario and to execute on that scenario. This consultant.
I agree.
would
I agree
not-
I don't question the evaluation, but if we decided to actually own it, can they do the project management function for us?
What would that be if we're owning?
Well, if we decided to own the loop,
Mhm.
I know Hunting Valley is looking at that option of owning the loop and maybe even the connections to houses. I think we're going to want somebody project managing the thing on our behalf. Hunting Valley, I know when they chose a consultant, they deliberately chose somebody who'd already been through that in case they decided to, and they came out there.
So I guess we need to distinguish between the implementation of that, and the answer
Right.
is yes. if it's, post, oversight of the village's investment, I think that's a different question, and that's not covered in the scope that we were looking at here. Any other?
Lori, I just had a quick question. It seems like maybe a couple of these items, maybe something for the committee, maybe they've already considered this. But a couple of bullet points in your mapping Gates Mills, I would think after the road program, we probably have a lot of this data already on hand. Determine the number of fiber miles, map Gates Mills, determine total number of households and businesses. I think we probably have a good chunk of that data, and maybe that helps with the overall cost and amount of time and work.
That will definitely help. Yeah, yes, thank you.
Can I ask a quick question? You say, and probably it's not what you mean, is that the consultant will negotiate the contract with the ISP. I always think the principal should be the negotiator and the consultant should help the principal. So I would hope that he would be an assistant to whoever from the village
Yeah,
negotiates
and-
on behalf of the village.
And maybe I misspoke there. I think that would support the negotiation, right?
Okay, that's what. I meant.
But
Good.
yeah, we wouldn't delegate that out. Absolutely right.
fine.
Yeah, thanks, Dave.
Any other questions?
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Lori.
Yeah, good. Glad it's moving along.
Next, Sandra, do you want to?
I have two reports. One is on Focus Forward Mayfield, the 3 to 5 year strategic plan that they're undertaking. So far, there have been 2 steering committee meetings and 2 town hall meetings. I guess the second one of which is actually tonight. The strategic pillars that
It was
that they
last night, actually. I was there.
was it last night?
Yeah.
Okay. The strategic pillars that they've established are, for the students, their own people, employees, staff members, family and community partnerships, and operations. So primarily fiscal operations, building management, et cetera. So I've been impressed with the process and the collaboration of the people who are on the steering committee. And again, they're kind of building off a plan that they had previously. So it's really kind of fine tuning. It's not that they're in a great deal of trouble, so to speak, but really trying to enhance and do a continuous improvement process. So the final meeting of the steering committee will be April 3rd. And then again, there'll be recommendations that they hope to implement starting the new school year. Okay.
Thank you.
On the schools, can I just cover the liaison committee very quickly? Okay, since the last council meeting, our little committee, we cover every Mayfield City School Board meeting. And the last one was on February the 15th. The next is March 22nd. Since the last council meeting, the committee has visited the middle school, the high school, the Innovation Center. They were all conducted in February. And on the 3rd of March, the 3rd of April, we're going to the Environmental Center, up on the Environmental Center on County Line Road. That's all we had. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandra, you want to go with the comprehensive?
Yeah,
plan?
the second report is on the comprehensive plan. Most of you know that we had our advisory committee meeting last week at the Gates Mills Elementary School. It focused on the last 2 topics for discussion. That advisory committee members said that they wanted more information or wanted to discuss further. And it had to do with primarily housing and development. The categories were divided into outside the village center and within the village center. And we broke into 2 groups. There were 17 of the 25 members in attendance. Notes were taken in both of the discussions, and per the normal process, those comments that came out of the discussion will be incorporated into the draft plan by the consultant. And then it'll be available on the website in anticipation of the April 18th meeting. It's a Tuesday. It'll be the town hall meeting. At that meeting, residents will have an opportunity to comment on the draft and to suggest priorities. Then it'll come back to the advisory committee in May for final review and comment and setting priorities. And we hope to present the document to the full council at the June meeting. One other topic that's come up, and it has to do with the invoices from CT Consultants, because we haven't received an invoice from them recently. The last one covers through June of 22. So we actually have a call with Chris. We, meaning Chip and I, have a call with Chris tomorrow to receive and review the expenses from that date till now, and to anticipate what the total cost will be at the end of the project, so that when we come back to you with a budget number, it will have been reviewed, negotiated, and be a complete number. So we'll likely have that next month.
Do you have do they have any reason why they haven't submitted an invoice since July 1st? It's supposed to be done monthly. That's the contract.
Supposed to be done
She
monthly.
must have plenty of working capital, I guess.
Yeah, I know. It's that's been very frustrating.
Strange.
Yeah.
Sandra, I've got one question. I was there Tuesday, and one thing that I was curious about, in the latest draft, the one that was the input for this meeting, they had introduced the concept of ADUs, alternative dwelling units, for the first time. To the best of my knowledge, that never actually got discussed or mentioned, at least not in the group that I observed. I wondered if that was still alive or if that is now off the table.
That's a good question. And you're talking about the discussion that we had last week.
Last Tuesday,
Yeah.
correct?
The ADUs really did not get discussed.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's why I was asking. I mean, as I understand it, that was the last meeting going into the town hall, and the plan will be finalized in draft form.
Right.
Going into the town hall. So I was curious what the status
gonna
of the
happen with that?
ADUs was. A
Well,
brand new concept that popped up and then never got discussed.
the discussion last week really covered mainly C, the goal C. But it did have kind of tenants into the other goals. So, meaning that there were things that were referred to in the village center and other goals that will have to change because of the discussion. So I'm imagining that there'll be some changes throughout the whole document to just kind of clean it up, as Chris did before this last meeting, taking everything that was discussed and agreed upon previously and kind of fine tuning it.
Will the draft before the town hall come out well in advance of the town hall and be distributed, so that people who want to come show up at the town hall can ask questions from an informed position?
Right. And I can't say at this moment what the exact date is. We've just gotten the notes from our scribes back to Chris today, as a matter of fact. So obviously we'd want to do that.
I would think it'd be
in
good to give
advance.
people a couple of weeks.
Okay. Well, and any other materials. So depending on how the town hall is going to be conducted, if there are questions that are going to be asked, we should put that on the website, and any maps that apply. So people have everything to look at.
I have a question too, Sandra. The April 18th date, which is at the Gates Mills Elementary School. I'm not sure we have the video capability at the elementary school. I think we ought to know a little bit about what that meeting is going to look like. Is it going to be a traditional town hall where people stand up and ask questions and get responses?
Mhm.
I hope we aren't going to be using those whiteboards with little yellow and green and red dots on it. I hope it's going to be a conversation. Have you made your minds up on that yet?
No, we have not.
Well, I hope you bear those
We have
comments
not.
in mind
Conversation.
as you do.
And that's a good point. I have a note to myself to call the school about taping. And if there is kind of an interactive or small group part of it, I don't know, then that may not be able to be taped, but we're used to that, so.
I would think they'd have the capabilities
You
at
would
the
think.
school.
Yeah, you would think so.
Well, let's make
working on
sure,
that,
I
yeah.
think it's important, particularly if it's a traditional town hall meeting with questions and answers.
If
So
not, we'll have to do it with cell phone or something, or a few of them.
I think it's probably the most important meeting in the entire process to this point.
Have you established a time for the meeting? That it's going to be at the Gates Mill School?
Yes.
Yes.
6 to 8 PM on that Tuesday, April 18th.
Okay.
April at the community house is all art shows, so our council meeting is going to be in the council chambers too, so there won't be any meetings here.
Yeah, this might be one where we want to, communicate with people in advance and
Well-
tell them, look, this is your chance to come ask questions and understand, there's been quite a long involved process with a lot of people and this is it. After that, it will presumably go to council.
Well, and we need to talk about a communication plan, but some of the ideas included, probably the obvious, making sure that we have something in the pink sheet, something goes out on Gates Mills Connect, and even talking about sending postcards home like we did regarding the survey to every household. So again,
That would be very
people
good, I
know,
think.
and yes,
The video part's important though.
Yeah.
yeah, I have it. I'm going to talk with them.
And one last point on the process, incorporating a discussion of the comprehensive plan in our regular June meeting is a little aggressive, I think. I think it ought to be a special council meeting. This is a very special event. And I don't think we'd have time to squeeze it in between committee reports and all that stuff. So it should be given an entire council meeting, in my view. And make it a special meeting. It is a
And so-
special event.
And so maybe at the June meeting, if that's when it's finished and given to us, we that night state that we're going to have a workshop or whatever,
Whatever.
we'll select a date or whatever.
Give some thought to that. I think it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sandra, the other thing I think I've seen to be effective, especially if you have a lot of people coming to the town hall, is to take questions in advance.
Okay.
And then you can kind of group them and even, gear the opening talk to maybe answer some of them and just,
Good.
especially if you're,
Good
I
idea.
think you'll get a lot of folks.
Yeah.
At BP, we
That's a
used to-
good idea because people that can't be there can be included then.
Yeah.
At BP, we used to use that system to avoid difficult questions. The question is, who decides which of those questions are dealt with? So I don't like that. It neutralizes the entire effect.
I worked at BP too.
So you know I'm right.
Actively, I will say.
Different
I-
department, no.
I think Sandra would be fair-minded in terms of looking at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is it correct to say that we'll have a plan in front of the village 2 weeks ahead of the meeting to peruse? And then open discussion with pre-planned questions that everybody wants to submit before the meeting?
Okay, so the meeting is April 18th.
Pardon
2
me.
weeks before that would be April, 5th, 4th?
I don't think you're going to get them.
Don't get what? I wouldn't get what?
2 weeks, going to get it 2 weeks before the.
Yeah,
10th.
two weeks may be a little aggressive, maybe 10 days.
It's going to be a 50-page document.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying because you've got the holidays and everything.
I would almost say that if you can't make it, you should push
Good idea.
the town hall further out. Because last thing we want is people coming and saying they didn't have a chance.
I agree.
And it's a complicated document. the way it's
If they want to submit questions, who would they submit them to?
Probably we suggest, off the top of my head, I think we'd suggest submitting them to the website.
Yeah.
Email address? Okay, to the email address then.
Is there any way they could just supply something in writing to a specific person, but they could,
Well, it
or drop off at town hall here
could drop it off at town hall too.
to Janet? Would that be the? I mean, just trying to find a focal point here to,
We'll get them to the right spot.
Yeah, I mean, they can drop them off. We could put a box with
a box?
a
Okay,
box with a slit in it that people could drop it in.
in the front,
Yeah,
that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
okay, thank you. All right, and we'll get moving on it, so we've got as much advance time as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other committee reports?
I've got a question about the Architectural Review Committee. We don't usually listen to reports from that committee, but I was actually approached last week by a group of people who live in the historic district north of Mayfield. And there were a lot of questions raised about the historic house located at 640 Chagrin River Road. And I thought it would be probably a good thing to have Dave take us through, what are the various steps in the permitting process, and were they in fact done as they should have been done, and what have you. I asked Tom Robinson, Chief Robinson, to be able to put a picture up so we all know what we're talking about. But I think there's a lot of emotion around this one. I think it'd be a good thing to talk through the process and whether we're happy with the outcome and that sort of thing.
Okay, we can do that. We'll have Dave, the ARB meeting was last week on Thursday. And we invited Sarah, who's the chair of the HRC meeting, to attend the meeting. And the house at 640 was the last item on the agenda. Dave, you want to speak about it?
Yeah, I think, Karen, what's generating the interest, should we say, or concern,
Yeah, sure.
whichever word you prefer, is it started out apparently as a renovation project on a historic home.
That's
and it
correct.
ended up as a tear down. And I think that's what people need to understand, is how did that happen and why was that the right outcome?
Could I add to that? Yeah,
Thank you.
I was a casual observer of this entire process, and 2 weeks ago, maybe 3, I'm not sure, I drove by and the house was standing. And there was a lot of work going on around it. And I thought, oh, they're making progress there. Then I went by a week later and the house was gone except for the front. And I'd never seen such a quick decision and execution on a demolition before. I do remember the Hunt Club cottage. It took us over a year to demolish that. And everybody knew ultimately it had to be demolished. That took a year. Here, somebody took a decision to demolish this building in a week's time. And I'm trying to understand, how could a renovation plan satisfy the requirement for a rebuild plan? And it seems that the ARB have agreed that that's okay. And I don't understand how that could have been done so quickly, unless somebody was anticipating demolition.
We had that incident before where somebody tore a house down on county line and left the door frame. And we found the door frame and there was nothing we could do about it. The house was.
Well, I don't remember that one, but let's stick with what we've got here. So-
Yes, so I guess.
Can you put up a picture so people know what we're talking about? I sent Tom a before picture and an after picture.
So I guess in general, I can say, yes, the procedure was followed. Okay. As far as the timing, it seemed to happen quick, and comparing it to the Hunt Club, I think you're kind of talking apples to oranges. This was a renovation plan with additions. The central core, which was what you saw, the original intent was to retain that
Yes.
structurally.
Yes.
On Monday, the 28th, the homeowner came in, met with me to discuss the structural issues that were a problem. And ultimately, said, what do we do? I need to really take this whole thing down.
This was the 28th of February.
Correct. So in timing, the following Thursday, which I believe was March 2nd, there happened to be an architectural board. And it is the architectural board's job to review and approve or not approve demolition requests. So what we did is we had that request submitted to the architectural board. And I had asked Sarah Welsh, the chairman of the historic district, to sit in that meeting, to obviously lend her comments to, how the historic board subcommittee would review it, which she did. And obviously any historic committee, and through the years, the historic committee does not really review demolition plans. Again, that's the architectural board's job. But the historic subcommittee certainly is not going to, and they don't approve or really want to allow demolition. That's their job, to protect the structures. And she voiced that in the meeting, but it's ultimately the job of the architectural board to make the decision of demolish or not demolish. And that's what took place. So a procedure was followed correctly and the decision was made by the appropriate board.
So between the 28th of February and the 2nd of March.
Right.
The request for demolition was presented,
Correct,
and on March 2nd, it was approved.
correct.
That's pretty fast. And what's the
Unfortunately-
plan from this point forward? I mean, what are they going to build? They're going to build an exact replica of the way it was? Or
Well, yes, and so that's the reason the front wall and the porch is there, okay? Because the homeowner has said, obviously, the additions are not changing from what was approved on the drawings or the permit. That's not changing. It's that central core that you saw.
Mhm.
That's the only thing that's really different.
Hmm.
And the owner has said, I'm going to rebuild that the way it was. And I made the recommendation of leaving that front wall and the porch, because that kind of sets the baseline. In that he knows how wide the structure was, he knows the heights of the floor, he knows the roof pitch. And again, the porch is really kind of a unique feature that, quite honestly, I think it'd be extremely difficult to replicate. But that's why it was left that way. Now, again, I would say the hope from the board was that the chimney would remain. I don't know timing wise if that was really anything from the 1944, but it might be. But when the homeowner went to dismantle it, it had a steel rod through the width of the house trying to hold it up. So when he dismantled it, the rod gave way and the chimney collapsed, which is part of what needed to be fixed. It really didn't have much of a foundation. I think Nick, actually, homeowner, is asking to possibly speak.
Myself, it's been our goal since the time we started this project to work with the village in preserving the home. And I believe the previous homeowners that are with us today.
Actually, you won't be picked up unless you're at the microphone. By the people who are looking at the video. We can hear you just fine.
So it's been our goal to preserve the home and still is. We've got a few $100,000 in selective demolition to get us to this point. So if it was our goal to take the house down, there's plenty of ways that we could have done it cheaper and simpler. So to Dave's point, in the goal of preserving the home, the structure and the position, it was the best that we could come up with was to match the front plane of the house to ensure that there was no movement of the future structure, no growth, no change to the plans that were previously approved. The chimney was something that we had requested that when we met with the ARB and historic review that we wanted to keep. We felt that corner view coming up from Wilson Mills was fairly iconic, and that was something that we wanted unchanged. And that was the mantle, the hearth was something that we wanted to preserve with the home. It was our request to redo the additions on the northwest and south elevations of the home because they were not on proper foundations. So that's kind of how this home renovation project slowly but surely escalated. We approached Dave kind of in an emergency situation because when we were doing work, we had shored up the basement of the home. And it was to our understanding that it was the foundation was secured at some point in time with cinder block and a new foundation. As we started excavation, we found that was not the case, that the house was supported by dry laid stone and somewhat of a fascia of 4-inch hollow block was propped up on the interior of the basement, giving the appearance that there was somewhat of a solid foundation, but there was no footing underneath. That meant that we would have to jack up the entire house and replace the entire footing. Based on our architect's independent assessment of our roof structure, of the wall structure, of the foundation structure, and the rotting rim joists, the entire structure, it was decided that the entire structure in due time would need to be replaced. And that was done by our architect and discussed with ARB, not something that we were looking forward to, not something that we were planning on. Again, had that been the case, we would have gone about this many different ways. So the chimney was something we wanted to stay. Unfortunately, it gave way, almost taking out 2 of the contractors. We're glad we're sad to see the chimney go, but we're glad that nobody was hurt. But we are rebuilding. So I guess the key element the historic board's input, I guess, was all of the work that was previously approved for this project, roofing, siding materials, windows. It was noted at some point, that preserving the old windows was important, which is something that's important to us as well. But there was at some point in time, aluminum windows replaced in the home that didn't match. So at some point in time, the home had been slightly upgraded, but none of it was original. So we will be replacing all wood windows. We will be making it as close to original as possible within the guidelines that we were given by the ARB or approved by ARB and Historic Review. It was important to the Historic Review Board that we get a profile of our siding dimensions, of our roof structure. And again, to Dave's point, the overhang, all of these pitches and all these things are unique to the home and things that could not be replicated by modern trusses and building methods. So it is still our goal to maintain that look and preserve all of that of the home. But ultimately we have to live there. We have a newborn, it needs to be secure. So it was conveyed to us that as long as the exterior was preserved, which it will be, and again, the siding materials, the roofing materials, all the construction materials had been previously approved. None of that was changing. The big concern for us, and there's documentation that we provided at the ARB meeting of the rotting rim joists, of the failing foundation, and to your question about the timeliness of the project, that house was going to end up in River Road. So we had to move quickly to demolish it before it became a further liability to one of our neighbors or another community member. So if.
Could I ask a question?
Yeah.
And there were pictures and whatnot at the meeting of various details
Yes.
from the entire
Yes,
house and construction.
yes, sir.
So what you're saying, when you did your due diligence before buying the house, when you had it inspected and all those steps?
It was
you
not
went through-
inspected. It was not of our belief that the house was going to pass inspection.
Okay, so if that was the case, you were expecting some problems along the way.
We were expecting to do modern renovations
Okay. Yeah,
of the home. And to be clear, that process was started by us immediately after purchasing the home. So this has been a project.
okay.
Hey, and David, one quick comment. I mean, you're talking about the time frame or kind of what you were just saying. Older homes like this that are being renovated or remodeled, this is not uncommon that you open up the wall and suddenly there's all kinds of surprises. So this is not uncommon.
Yeah.
I would say what is uncommon that he came in Monday and Thursday, there just happened to be an architectural board. Now that probably may never happen again that quick, but ultimately, we do certainly want to keep our residents moving in a direction that they are looking forward, towards, so.
So with anybody buying property in the historic district is taking on an awful lot of risk and a lot of responsibilities.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do they know that when they buy? I mean, I'm not talking about you particularly, but just generally. I mean, are they told that you're taking on enormous responsibilities here and with cost risk?
Well, I guess at the time of someone looking, I'm not aware of, yes, if a homeowner or a potential buyer is looking at something and is questioning, I do get the calls of, hey, our understanding this is in the historic district. What does that mean? Am I allowed to add, fix the kitchen or a new kitchen or add an addition? Yes, and here's the process. But I can't speak for every person that looks at a historic home. I mean, if they don't call me, I don't know who's looking.
Sure.
But that was a risk that we knew we were taking. We were aware of that, which is why this has been a lengthy process and we chose to do selective demolition. It is more extensive than we had planned, as anybody's home improvement project normally is. But we were not, we didn't know that there was structural failures within the home. At first glance by our architect, a previous architect that we had engaged with that didn't fulfill the project, by multiple sources. We did the best that we could to come up with a proper assessment. And again, at the end of the day, whether the original structure that came down was there or not, the positioning, the height, and all the dimensions, as residents will drive by for years to come, will be unchanged.
Thank you very much for coming. I know we thanked at ARB coming and being
Well,
honest
again,
with what,
It is in our best interest,
yes.
help work with the village. We are not working, we're not leaving. And we want to do our best to make
And we thank you for that.
Appreciate your time.
Any other questions?
I have a housekeeping point for council. I've been coming to council meetings now for several years. I've never heard a report from the ARB. And I've never read ARB minutes on the website. That's a deficiency. I think every committee, particularly the important ones, and this is, I think, is one of them, should report on a monthly basis of anything that's a little different, even routine. And I think the minutes should be more comprehensive and so people can see them on the website. That's not done in a very rigorous or disciplined fashion.
Well, Dave, if I can just add a quick comment, kind of the way I like to look at running the department. I'm not saying that's not a good tool in the toolbox to putting them on the website, but my experience both with the architectural, historic and the planning is I like to get the personal contact. I mean, I feel part of our job is provide service to our residents. And so I like if they can call me and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm Dave, and we get that dialogue with a new resident or a current resident that maybe I have not met before or ever had the opportunity to talk to. And it provides a couple things, quite honestly. And with Mike is an example of the case. So many times you will go to the website and think what you need to look for. And in some cases, there may be a date where there was a preliminary review and a year later it got to the final. Well, do you really want to pour through 12 months worth of minutes when if you call me and say, hey, I want the July ARB minutes, and I say, okay, sure, yeah, absolutely, I'll get those to you. But I followed up with the question, well, what is it you're trying to look for? Well, I'm trying to look for, the bigger remodeling job. And I'll say, well, that's not the one you need to look for. You want the March one. And so again, I like to have that personal contact. It also helps direct them into the correct direction, because sometimes they'll say ARB, what they really meant was P and Z. It leads to other good things. I can explain, well, I want to hear about the tree ordinance, and I explain it and I include that then. So I'm not saying it's not a good tool in the toolbox, but I prefer, and I think it's more efficient for people just to call either me or Gene and say, hey, can I get the minutes? Just like what Mike did.
Well, I agree with
In
that.
addition, it would be problematic with all the plans and paperwork involved with
Yeah, I
some
mean,
of
we're not-
these
we
structures. You
don't-
couldn't put that on the website, but you're welcome to come down and look at them.
Yeah, but I look at these minutes sometimes to see what's going on.
Sure.
I don't have any specific questions.
Right.
And if I see them.
Good point.
It may prompt a question.
Sure.
And I call bigot.
Sure.
But I think there should be an effort to put minutes on the website,
We can do that.
regardless
Yeah.
of all the committees that publish their agendas. Why not?
Yeah, and I only use Mike as an example because he had asked me for the June, July, and March minutes.
Mhm.
June was when the DeSillo project first came in, and obviously he correctly would have assumed that July is when it got approved. Well, it was really not until November.
Yeah.
So again, that corrected a miss. Now, again, I gave him, because as a public record, he asked for July, so I gave it to him, but I think what you're really looking for is November.
Sort
So,
of, that's fine.
yeah.
I'm kind of thinking.
It's a
out-
good point. We can do something
Yeah.
better with it.
Well, I was just thinking about what you would put in the minutes when you're doing planning and zoning. There is some discussion about detail that you include.
Right.
And if there's a variance, I mean, that's obviously important for everybody to be able to see.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking out loud about the ARB meetings with with all the plans and the drawings, and then they bring samples of stone
Materials.
material and tile and flooring and whatnot. So, I mean, the most you could say would be the the Mike Press family was here. And, it was the first review of their plans. They're coming back on X. I'm not sure what else could go in there. That would at least give you who was there. But I think that might
And maybe
be the extent of it.
some of the important questions that were raised and answered. I don't need to see the plans. If you're that curious about the plans, you call bigot.
Absolutely.
See the plans.
Absolutely.
I'm just saying that
Absolutely.
the minutes on the website tell me what's going on.
Okay.
And I need to know whether, and I look at it and I say, am I interested in this or not? If I am, I call him. If I'm not, I don't.
Yeah, I can hook up with Gene and we can make that
Thank you.
happen.
And look at it.
So,
Okay, thank you.
Two comments. One, in my 8 years on planning and zoning and my time around ARB and some of these other committees that we have, it's nice to hear that we were efficient and move quickly to address the situation. I think the perception among villagers is anytime they're in front of planning and zoning or ARB or historic, It's going to take 9 months to get something done. Clearly, this was a potential safety issue, but I think the bigger issue that the village is going to have to deal with at some point in time, and that time is quickly approaching with a lot of homes in the village over 150 years old, 160 and 80 years old that were made of wood, not stone and brick, is we have an aging housing stock in the village. And let's face it, we're not Shaker Heights, so we're not going into people's homes and demanding inspections at random points. We're not demanding point of sale inspections when homes transfer. So I think about 150 or 100 years of time where I don't know what happened with this house, and things that maybe were done the right way, things that maybe weren't done the right way, that maybe could have been found or fixed before it was too late.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think we as a village need to think about the best way to be able to help homeowners for the next 15, 20 years, so that when we have these homes that somebody wants to go in and renovate, that they open a wall up and say, you know, I've basically got to tear the place down because it's rotten from the inside out. And you don't know any of that until you open the walls up.
Well, I, you know, and I don't want to delay this too much longer, but was there any other pictures, or is this just the only? Okay,
Good.
because the interesting thing on this, I don't know if you remember, but to the south or the left, there was a small, I think, addition put on. And if we had the picture, the front wall of that actually came into the middle of a window of the original house. So, and I have no record of how that was built or permitted or what, but you know, I understand the desire and the want, and obviously, you know, historic homes or certain homes should be, you know, maybe more protected than others. But again, you know, a wall coming into a window, I don't know how historic that is, but anyway, nonetheless,
There's a story.
yeah. I mean, it's unique, you know, I don't think,
A lot of unusual things have
Yes,
happened to some of
yeah,
our
sure.
older homes.
so certainly if
Until you're
anybody has
doing it, you don't find out about it.
any other questions, certainly call me or email. I'm happy to answer.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Chuck, hey, Chuck, you come,
Chuck, you
Chuck,
gotta come up to this, yes, please, come.
I represent the neighborhood.
Okay,
And I just want to say.
state your
that-
name and
Oh, my name is Chuck Spear, 629 Chagrin River Road.
thank you.
This is Paul and Natalie here. They're the heartbeat of the neighborhood. When they moved away, we were destroyed. They had the Seven Continents Sports Festival on their ground every year. And everybody came. I played cricket when I was 79. I never played cricket in my life. We have new neighbors now who obviously have poured their heart out into this project. And I'm proud of them. I love these guys. And I'm so proud of the village for how this has been handled. This is just a high point for me. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Chuck. Okay, thank you, Dave. Next, we're going to go to the police department. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Everybody should have received a copy of my report. I'll be happy to take any questions you might have. Yes, sir.
I've got a question, Chief. I asked about the traffic count on Old Mill, and we should measure and establish a baseline. I understand you did that. And I also understand that we have one from December of 21. I was just curious what that showed.
Okay, so I do have some numbers from the most recent one that we did that I could share with you. Okay, and this one was done, and we're doing another one here right now. You may have noticed the signs that are up. We're trying to, confirm our work and whatnot, looking at some different ways of doing the study. But this most recent one here was done 7 days, February 17th, February 23rd. And total traffic count on Old Mill Road, we're talking about, Old Mill Road, had almost 8,000 cars, 7,948. So, you divide that up, it's about 1,135 cars a day. Eastbound, coming from, Gates Mills Boulevard, Berkshire, Mayfield, up down the hill, eastbound, we had close to 5,000, 4,974. And that equates to about 710 a day. 250 of those cars were during the rush hours combined between 4 and 6 PM and 7 and 9 AM. Westbound from County Line or, Mayfield Road in Chesterland, making the left turn, because we don't know where they're coming in from. We had almost 3,000, 2,974. 2,974, and you divide that by 7, you get 424 a day, 110 cars between 7 and 9 AM, and 65 cars between 4 and 6 PM. And just a couple notes that I made, and I've given this a lot of thought. I was actually up there kind of watching traffic myself. So this doesn't necessarily mean that it's through traffic at all. We're really not going to know that. They could be, I actually talked to Mary at the post office, and she said they have 100 walk-ins a day. So, that factors in police cars, service vehicles, fire apparatus, people going to the post office, community house, library, town hall, restaurant, but I did find interesting, and it kind of confirmed what I had thought. So, a lot of residents, come off of County Line Road, and they go down to Mayfield, they'll come down through the village. And if they pass through, they'll make the left turn onto Gates Mills Boulevard, more so than go all the way out to Mayfield. So Gates Mills Boulevard is heavily used in the morning, obviously. And then same thing on the way home. A lot of cars will go eastbound down the hill, come off of Gates Mills Boulevard. So if you're working from the south, if you get off the freeway, chances are you're going to go all the way out on 322. If you're working from the south, you'll take Gates Mills Boulevard. And most people actually take Old Mill Road. And they'll take County Line to Fairmount or, Cedar Road. Some do go straight, but it's really hard to get we're really not going to know, exactly how much that's through traffic.
No, we'll see what happens
Correct,
down the road.
correct.
But thank you for the baseline.
Oh, you bet. I mean, we're doing it again here right now. We moved the signs around a little bit, to see if we could, get a little bit closer to, what the through traffic may look like. But, it's time consuming, but, we're getting there.
Thank you. When do you expect the cameras to start working?
Okay, so the cameras, I could provide you with an update on that. So just this week, we did receive notification. This is important from the Lyndhurst Court that they have decided to switch vendors. So what that means is they're going to be ready to take us on sooner than anticipated. So they're using the software vendor that Garfield Heights now uses. Most of the area departments who have these cameras do use Henshin and Associates. They did sign the contract. So the projected timeline, the court has to be ready for us to, process the citations and whatnot. So we're hoping around June 1st, the court will be ready to take us on. We believe that the eastbound traffic camera will be working probably by mid-May. That's what we're hoping for. That's what we have been told. We'll see what happens with that. The westbound camera is a little bit more challenging. It doesn't mean that it cannot happen by that time. I'll have more information as far as the westbound camera goes, probably by the end of this week. But it is possible we may only have the eastbound camera up and running and then the westbound will follow, but we just don't know yet.
It would be very nice if we were able to get a baseline for Mayfield Road before we start issuing citations.
Yeah, we should be able to do that. Again, we'll see what happens. But the way I'm looking at this, if everything goes hopefully as planned, say we get the eastbound camera, May 1st, May 14th, mid-May, whatever. The court won't even be ready to take us on. So we'll have a good 2 weeks of data. And then we have that 30-day warning period to boot. So we would actually have 45 days of data before citations are even, sent out.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Next is Service Department, Dave.
My turn again already. Wow. Should have received a copy of my monthly report. Certainly, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
I got a question, Dave. We mentioned very briefly earlier on the overrun on the road program for last year. Are we asking for bids in a different form this year than last?
Yes, I
Terms,
think
not in terms of the numbers, but in terms of the contract structure. So that we're clear about how overruns will be dealt with, because it seemed to me council was blindsided last year. We had to we didn't have to approve, we had to approve payment of the $250,000.
Right.
We had no say in whether that was the right decision to take at all. And I was hoping that we'd have a little time this year if the same thing were to happen. So I was wondering if what we learned from last year, if we're applying what we learned, and I don't know what the lessons were, to the way we ask for bids, examine bids, and conduct the program this year.
I don't think that, I think addressing it to council is an internal issue. I don't think the bids or the proposal, request for proposals are going to address that. That's something that we would need to work internally as far as if this comes up, how we address it to you guys.
Well,
Make a
well,
decision.
bear with me.
That's not a contractor's,
Bear with me.
He's not gonna do
We
it.
may ask for a fixed price contract if we're nervous about overruns. I don't know.
right.
There are different ways of structuring contracts that would need to be important as you evaluated the bids.
Right.
I
I'll
think,
let Chris.
I think we'd have to have a special council meeting because we didn't know about it till they took the top of the road off.
Yeah, so two things. One is we've added additional contingency sections into the contract this year that will get us the fixed price from the contractor in advance of doing any work if it becomes necessary. Those numbers will be seen by council at the time of the award of the contract, with the anticipation of them only being used if and when they are needed. And if there comes a point in time where any of that additional money is needed, you will have seen it in advance and there'll be a notification in place that I will let you know before any of the work is done, and council
Right.
approval will be required before any of the work is completed.
If that's the process we have set up, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If I could just kind of caution one thing, what you kind of need to understand is, Roniak last year fortunately came in as an army, and it's efficient for them to get in, get out. So let's take an example, say Chartley, where we opened up, I can't remember how many feet it was. Now, for him to stop, okay, and then wait a week or a month to get a decision from council, it costs us more money because he's got to pull all the equipment off. He's going to go to another job. So I understand what your concern is, but you have to temper it with what you want and how much is it going to add to costs.
Yeah, so what we're really saying is the technique we've been using to identify which roads need repairs and so on, which is purely on the surface.
For the most part.
We never know what we're going to find underneath.
So that's
You've learned nothing from that.
just like what we had the
last year.
discussion of the house until he
Sure.
opened up the walls.
Sure.
No one
Okay.
knew that there was structural.
But the fact
I
this
understand.
year, we were caught last year with an open road and had no prices included. What he just said about having a price in there for that work, that,
And
So
the
a
process.
couple
to-
things. I mean, having
approving
pricing in advance will help.
Yeah.
That's
No,
good.
and one of the things that Chip and I talked about, keeping in mind the way that we're now doing our road program after the roadway assessment that we did, we're starting with the worst roads first. So the chances of us running into unknown conditions that are going to potentially require an additional spend in order to rebuild the road
Go down.
are much higher on roads that are in far worse condition. So as we move forward, we kind of work ourselves out of this situation. The roads that we're doing this year, we spent quite a bit of money doing some repair work last year. So I'm pretty comfortable that we've gotten a lot of the surprises out of the way because we've had heavy equipment on the road. We've repaired some of the worst areas in anticipation of doing a more comprehensive resurfacing on them this year. We'll have the contingency sections in the contract. If we run into a problem that's going to require those dollars to be used, we'll have a protocol in place to notify council, and we'll ask for some sort of a quick decision, whether it's a special meeting or some sort of nod of the head with official approval at the next meeting so that nobody is caught off guard by it.
Thank you, Chris.
One other quick comment, if I could add, and I know Chris and I talked with Chip about this. So I understand in the short term, the 2022 road program would appear to be $250,000 above what we anticipated. Okay, so we're going to take 2023 in a little bit of one of two approaches. Number one, we either cut back 2023's work by the 250. So at the end of the 2-year period, it follows exactly what we said in our long-term road program plan. Or as Chip's saying, we may go to you guys and say, well, do you want that? Or do you want us to just spend what we had thought for 2023? So there is some decisions you're going to make ahead of time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think with our roads, I don't ever remember a time where we had such a quandary with,
It was a challenge.
in all the years. It's just unusual.
Thank you.
No other questions? That concludes my report.
Thank you, Dave. Next is Fire Department, Chief.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. You should have received a copy of the fire department report in your packet, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. And if you don't, I'm going to keep talking. 'Cause they had a lot of time. No, I do want to bring up the fact, and this will be in next month's report because it happened on Saturday. We did have a dryer fire on Saturday evening at the Holy Cross House as part of Gilmore Academy campus. And that fire was a result of not cleaning the dryer vent. We've all got dryers at home. You know, you need to clean out the dryer vent. You need to disconnect it from the back of the dryer and clean it out. You know, if that would have been done, that dryer would have never caught on fire. That's a very old structure up there with some elderly priests living there on the second floor. And of course, our main concern is that everyone gets out safely. As it turned out, the fire was extinguished very quickly. There was a decent amount of smoke damage, but not a lot of flame damage. But please, not only, you know, the fact that I know you all changed your smoke detector batteries this past weekend, but clean out your dryer vents. If there are no other questions, that concludes the fire department report.
Thank you, Chief.
Just make one observation on the police report. I'm sorry, I'm out of order.
Say that again?
I'd like to make one observation on the police chief's report.
Okay.
We got a new world record for house checks. 4,639. 4,639 house checks in the month of February, which has only got 28 days. So that's a lot of house checks.
Yeah, and you know, and we did a lot of research on that here this week. About 60% of those are from this side of town, 40% on the other end, the north side. We split it down Mayfield Road. But this is really the highest peak that we're at this time of year here right now. We have, you know, I counted them up. I think we were like 52 houses we were watching. You do the math on that per the officers checking the houses and you multiply that out. So we don't ordinarily see that number, but it is the highest number I think I've seen in a long time.
It's a world record for
Yeah.
us.
Is this a record number of ambulance runs? Or close to it? 21?
No, it isn't. We've had more.
Thank you, Chief. Next on the agenda is ordinance 2023-10. This is first reading for an ordinance authorizing disposal and sale of a front-end loader used by the village service department that is unfit, obsolete, and unneeded for village purposes and declaring an emergency. And you have it in your packet, and we have a bid of 26,500 by Green Estates Landscape of Cleveland, Ohio.
So moved.
Second.
Eton,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press,
Yes.
Steinbrink,
Yes.
Turner. Yes. Welsh.
Yes.
That's declaring an emergency. Now we got to move.
Motion to approve.
That's to
Suspend, I mean.
Motion to approve ordinance 2023-10.
Second?
Eton,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press,
Yes.
Steinbrink,
Yes.
Turner. Yes. Welsh.
Yes.
Thank you. Next is resolution 2023-11. This is first reading. Craig?
Yeah, this is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an amendment to the master services agreement with Census Gatso for an automated photo traffic enforcement system. Recall last council meeting, we brought through the updated fine ordinance that was approved, changing the first tier of the fine amounts. There's two reasons that this amendment is necessary for the contract. The first of which was the Supreme Court ruling last May that has effectively put a wrench in this process to the tune of 14 to 15 months. So the original 5-year term that the village agreed to with Census Gatso. We're now a year into it, and effectively, there's no revenue's been generated yet. So the first part of this is to extend the contract to the first to occur of either September 1st or the date of the first citation that's issued.
Then 5 years from there.
And then 5 years from that date, so that 5-year term is, that's what the village agreed to. So that's the first part of this. The second part is, again, because of the Supreme Court ruling last May, the actual process of who collects the fines has been changed. Previously, Census Gatso would collect the fine and then remit the village's portion to us. Because of the Supreme Court ruling, the Lyndhurst Court is now required to collect all of those fines and then disperse those funds. So there was another section in the contract that needed to be amended for how the fines are being handled. And so that's the reason for this amendment.
Okay, thank you.
And this is first reading. I don't see any reason why we need 3 readings on this, since we already approved this last January, so I'll move to suspend.
The rest of the terms remain.
Everything else remains the same. There were only a few sections in here that were changed as it relates to the initial term and the way that the invoicing, payments, and deposits are handled.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Do we have a second to the? motion?
Second,
Eton.
Yes.
Deacon,
yes.
Press,
I don't see the need for an emergency on this one. I certainly support the resolution. I'll vote for it. But it seems to me that we do a lot of stuff by declaring an emergency. Almost everything seems to be an emergency. And it doesn't seem like the right pattern. I mean, do we?
Part of that's because we only meet once a month.
Right, and Michael, I would agree with you, but we've already approved this. And so it's an amendment. It's
Fine,
essentially
then
we've,
Yes.
so you say yes? Okay, Steinbrink,
yes.
Turner,
Yes,
Welsh.
No.
Motion to approve resolution 2023-11.
second,
Eton,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press,
Yes.
Steinbrink.
Yes.
Turner,
yes.
Welsh.
No.
Okay, next is council matters. Is there any other council matters?
I
Bring
just
up.
have one comment. I don't know if anybody gets this at their house, this Stroll magazine. I thought the article in here on the Land Conservancy, the interview with Nat Smith was excellent. Lived in the village over 20 years, and there are some things in this article that I learned. So I thought it was a great read. I would encourage villagers to take a read.
Good point. It was a good article. Thank you.
I've got one comment too. The CVT ran an article in February, and it was an article on Kathy Mulcahy, who's the mayor of Orange, very popular mayor. And she declared early on that she wasn't going to run again. And went even further and identified a couple of people who might, but not limited to that. But here are a couple of people who are likely to throw their hat in the ring. And it seemed to me that that was a pretty classy way to do it. I know, we have 4 openings, I think, maybe 5 coming up this November. And people can do whatever they want, but I would encourage them to, if you're not going to run, put your hand up so that people can figure out who is going to run for that job. Maybe everybody's rerunning, I don't know, but just seemed like a good way to do things as opposed to waiting till the last minute.
Normally, and notorious for Gates Mills, we declare and whatnot, usually going into April, first part of May, something like that. But that's just
That'll
what's
do it.
happened in the
That'll do it.
past. Any other council things?
Obviously.
Yeah.
The sooner
Pardon
the
me?
better. The sooner the better. Gives people more time to make their minds up about various things.
Any other council matters?
Just one thing, on the minutes, I probably should have said it earlier. I thought they were really well done. To me, it was very informative. It directed you to where to go if you wanted more detail. So just appreciate that you've done a great job there. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I know it's a lot of work. because I've done minutes before.
Any other business from the audience? We need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Eton,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Russ, Steinbrink.
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Wolf.
Yes.
Thank you for coming. Remember, the next month's meeting is in council chambers.